Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. Over the past 7 years, we've understood what matters most to you, the entrepreneur. And in year 8, we're taking head-on two of your most pressing concerns, that of funding and mentoring. Tonight, a very special conversation on our Ballantines Golf Retreat presents 12 Undaunted Greats segment. The focus is on AllCargo. On the other side of a break is sea linkages. In this very special segment tonight, Ballantines Golf Retreat presents 12 Undaunted Greats. Our first conversation is with AllCargo's Shashi Kiran Shetty. He has the quintessential entrepreneurial journey, arriving in Mumbai with not much in his wallet but with big dreams. He went on to, of course, form AllCargo and to make it what it is today. I spoke to him about that journey, about the highlights of that journey, about the challenges and how he managed to convert those into opportunities, and also his advice for our entrepreneurs watching this interview. Take a listen. Thank you very much for your time here on the show, Mr. Shetty. Such a pleasure having you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. We do, masterclasses for entrepreneurs all the time, and you are the quintessential entrepreneur, moving to Mumbai many years ago with nothing but a dream and a very limited corpus to building AllCargo to what it is today. Right. What has that journey been like? And I want to start by talking about maybe one or two of the highlights. I know it's difficult to compress it really into that, but one or two of the highlights of your entrepreneurial journey.
No, I think, it's been a great journey, obviously fascinating, I would say. So 10 years later, my original dream to get into the main shipping business brought me to get started with AllCargo. So earlier company was called Trans India Freight Services Private Limited. So then eventually merged Trans India also into AllCargo. AllCargo, basically what we do is we consolidate LCL cargo into one single container going to a particular destination. To give an example, out of India, we load to about 50 different destinations every week, cargo going directly. And in some of the boxes, there are cargo belongs to different destinations, which we use hub and spoke methodology to distribute the cargo to the final destination. But the most important part of our journey has been, I can name a lot, but the main ones are building the global company from India through acquisitions. We acquired a European company with 120 offices. At that time, it was 5 times our size, employing almost another 5 times more employees than AllCargo employed. 120 offices, like I said, and using that company post turning it around. The company was in trouble, obviously. That is how we got it. We raised private equity money to buy that company, and then also went public within about 2 years. That was 2005. Late 2004, we got the private equity investment. We sold only 6% of the company, raised $12 million. And then use that money for acquisition of this European company.
Did you have good mentors along the way?
Yes and no. Not really any professional mentors, because my life was completely submerged into running the business. Reading and looking at how others have done it is the way I mentored myself. I don't have any, in that sense, a particular mentor to go and talk to or anything, but I think it's purely, the ideas which is emerged within you, and attending some of the conferences gives you a lot of idea. Going to some of the courses, small courses here and there, gave you a lot of ideas. And I think once you're a keen learner and a keen listener, there are a lot of lessons around you which we tend to ignore. And memorize them and analyze how you can use it for your purposes, your requirements.
I want to talk about the logistics and the cargo industry here in India. Every time one discusses what's going on in the logistics industry, the first word that perhaps comes to mind is how fragmented it is. I do want to start by talking about the opportunities. Multiple reports suggesting that perhaps 300 billion by 2020, that's in the next 1 year, is the kind of target the cargo and logistics industry can reach. Through this interview, if we can talk to our entrepreneurs to say this is where you perhaps are seeing the biggest opportunities when it comes to this industry, what would that be?
You know, I think even if you look at the developed markets, the logistic industry, even there is very fragmented. And logistic industry, the words sometimes get confused, right? The logistic industry, mainly because of multiple specializations in logistics. One has transportation, who owns trucks. Yeah. Transportation where you are only a broker. Yeah. You are a consolidator. You are a shipping line operator. Yeah. You are a freight forwarder or third-party logistics service provider. Air freight service provider, rail operator. So there is various segments in logistics. That's how logistics sound even more fragmented. Sure. Because everything gets converged into logistics, right? In this industry, it's very important for us to have foot on the ground. Okay. And there's a lot of connectivity issue because since there are multiple stakeholders involved in the global transportation and supply chain. You have shipping lines, you have ports, you have customs, you have health inspectors, dangerous cargo inspectors, surveyors, stevedores, the various operators are transport companies. Various operators need to integrate their whole system. Okay, so it sounds for a seamless operation.
So it sounds not just fragmented but also complicated to some extent. Yes. Where are the opportunities? Where can an entrepreneur who's in this space then make money?
You know, it's very, very difficult to build a scale in this business because this industry has been, has been in existence last 50, 60 years more, right? Companies have already built large global organizations. In NVO space, there are only two main players who are global operators. Okay. One is our company, and there is another US company called Vanguard. These are two companies who are really able to build a global scale. So there is no room for a third or a fourth player to come to that unless they consolidate, unless they merge together.
If you were to pick one or two of these niche areas that you think will perhaps really pick up steam over the next maybe year or next 2 years for small businesses, what's your advice?
In the logistics space, one of the main growth engine what we are betting on is express transportation and third-party logistics. And the other segment could be e-commerce, the last mile, first mile delivery. And to add to that, there is an opportunity also in the cold chain logistics. Right? These are the broadly within the domestic market. I'm talking purely domestic market because India is an economy which is growing. Okay, now there is a bit of a slowdown, but I think in the long run, India is likely to grow. And we have such a huge population, young population. Consumption is Indians are very aspiring to have a better quality of life. So the consumption-led growth in India is what we are all expecting. That's why all of us are making investments.
I do want to talk about the role of the GST as well. I know you're a big proponent in terms of saying that it has eased a lot of issues in the logistics and the transportation space. Anything more that you would like to see though when it comes to government regulation and policy for the logistics and cargo space?
I think government has done fair bit to the segment. I think one of the biggest bottleneck even today is about the infrastructure. I think if India is able to execute the vision of investing $1.5 trillion, which our finance minister's government has recently announced, if they're able to execute that, I think that will be a game changer.
You were talking about e-commerce previously. I just want to come back to that and talk about increasing competition when it comes to the domestic market. One, how do you as a company view the attention and interest, if I can really call it that you're seeing from a lot of global e-commerce players in the domestic market, and therefore Indian companies which are also gaining scale and saying that perhaps they're going to be doing their own logistics and cargo at their end. How are you viewing competition? How should a small business, take on this kind of competition in their own home country?
I think in the domestic market, one of the main activity in logistics is transportation and cargo handling, correct? The domestic transportation and cargo handling will have to be 90% will have to be done by the companies who own trucks. The Amazons and the Flipkarts are not going to buy trucks. They're always going to outsource that. So I think the trucking operation need to become far more efficient.
Sure.
And I think also for the country to become efficient and for our industry, there has to be a lot of cargo that should move by Indian coast and by the railways and also by the inland waterways. So the mix of the cargo movement, today it is a lot more on the road side. The road carries more than 60% of the domestic cargo movement, right? And that equation need to change to something like 30-35% by road, 25-30% by rail, and the rest should be by water.
Okay.
So that mix will also create a lot of opportunity for the new entrepreneurs.
So trucking is definitely, and you were talking about trucking, has seen a lot of digitization.
Yes.
So what is the specific opportunity that you think digitization will create in the logistics and cargo industry that a small business, a startup, an MSME, SME can really look at targeting?
No, I think they can really have to find a way how the trucks can be far more efficiently utilized using the technology, how they can eliminate wastages. Like the one thing known in the trucking industry is pilferage of fuel, right? So with the new technology of having sensors and various other electronic tools which are available for you to control and to avoid the pilferage of fuel, you save a lot of money on that. And then if you have a double driver and a relay system, right? So then your efficiency of the truck, it gets better. GST has already contributed big time for the vehicles to be more efficient.
Let's take a quick break on that note. On the other side, Sea Linkages, Sameer and Bhavik Khera of the company joining us to run us through the highlights of that business. Do stay tuned. Back in just a moment. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. The spotlight tonight on the influencers is on Sea Linkages. I'm being joined by Bhavik Khera of Sea Linkages on the show, live here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Bhavik, good having you joining us. I understand Sea Linkages is a 5-decade-old company. I want to go back to the start though and discuss where and how it all started. What can you tell us?
So thank you, Sunanda, for having me on the show. So Sea Linkages actually in its original avatar was started, we are actually second generation. It started by my father in 1971. And at that time, it was basically an import substitute. It was basically for import substitution of products which were being imported in 1970s. And then subsequently, we kind of developed over the years, and we added on our own products. So we added, in 1982, we added the couplings from which these were pneumatic and hydraulic couplings. Then in 87, we added electrical connectors, which were the electrical linkages. In 92, we added mechanical linkages. So in all of this, that's how it kind of also, the name signifies Sea Linkages.
When you started though, when you started making your engineering products and you started with the manufacturing services, my question to you is, How did you manage to convince your customers, your buyers really about the product and about the brand and about the company?
We basically started as an import substitution company, and that kind of developed the confidence in our customers, and based on that we've just grown by, I think we've not really very aggressively marketed ourselves, but it's basically been on the word of mouth, our kind of the confidence the customers have developed in us, in our product, in our quality, in our delivery, has kind of ensured that customers have come to us just because of the reliability that we offer.
I understand, as a natural side process of your business, a lot of waste is being generated. How do you manage that waste, Bhavik? What can you tell us?
Our basic, mostly polluting part is the coolant that we use for machining, and this is something which we accumulate over a few days, and this is then disposed of to authorized government-approved dealers for ultimate disposal.
I want to talk a little bit about SAP and how that really is working in your business. Bhavik, what can you tell us?
So for the size of our company, most companies our size would probably go in for ERPs. Today ERP is kind of a must for most manufacturing companies, and companies our size would typically go in for a smaller kind of a more cost effective probably solution, which would have probably been like an SAP B1 or but we as a company have always stayed one step ahead, and we've decided to kind of go in for the full version, which is the SAP S4 HANA. We've kind of done it so that we are ready for the future.
All right, Bhavik, thanks for your time. We're not done with Sea Linkages though. I'm being joined by Sameer Khera to run us through the other side of the business, and let's really talk about customers, what the company is doing when it comes to retaining and acquiring customers. Sameer, thank you so much for your time. I want to start by talking to you about the fact that today you're present with customers pretty much all over the world. How did you manage that?
Thank you, Sunanda, for having me on the show. We did participate in a couple of exhibitions in Hanover. I think it was in 2000 or so. And but since then we've not gone back. Neither have we spent any advertising, any money on advertising of that sort. I think it's more been word of mouth, because we've had satisfied customers who somebody joins a different organization and then they get back to us saying, since they were happy with their experience, they want us to do more. I think that's really been the situation. Today we have 74% of our turnover is from exports, and honestly, I think it's just because of the simple principle of satisfying the customer.
Sameer, congratulations on the fact that you've been awarded as the best SME as far as social and environmental responsibility is concerned. Just talk to us about that, what that has really meant for your business.
We were always supporting small CSR projects in the community, and about 8 years ago, my brother and I, we felt that we needed to institutionalize this whole spending. As part of that, we set up our SWE Foundation, and we decided that we would apportion a certain percentage of our profit to that every year. We decided on a couple of verticals, including educare and healthcare for the girl child, and working with the local community. And I think that was probably the same year that we completed some surveys by Dun & Bradstreet, and I think this particular one was a Business Today Yes Bank survey. And surprisingly, we were nominated for the award. Not that that was the intention, but having said that, it always feels good that the thought process gets validated, and I think it also inspires everybody here that there's a certain value principle they need to look up to.
Another thing that's very close to your heart, Sameer, and to Bhavik's heart also, is the work you're doing towards development of the girl child. Can you tell us a little more on that?
Yeah, that's actually a very personal thing in our family. Both my brother and I, we have 2 daughters each. Our extended family also, there are only girls. I have a younger sister as well, and somehow I think the consensus in the family was that that's an area we need to focus and work on, and I think we just felt that probably will, that specific focus I think is something that we all felt strongly about and just decided to go that way. So.
I want to discuss some of the milestones you've seen, and that's one of the things, of course, has been the rapid growth that you've seen in sales. You know, what has helped you sort of consolidate that position and grow?
Few years ago, as both my brother and I said, we were thinking of a path going forward. We wanted to create a distinctive line between ownership and management. As part of that, we felt that we needed to professionalize, get in place a good team. And obviously, to get good talent, to retain good talent, we needed to be able to show them a growth path. So I think the whole endeavor to focus on the top line started from there. And I think as, I wouldn't say luck would have it, but I think the team joined, and within a year we were able to deliver a 25% growth on the top line. And I think it validated some of the stuff that we were doing. Also, it inspired the team. And I think to go forward, you need to, I think growth feeds on itself, and it was important to be able to do that. So.
In the growth of any business, of course, you know, along with the opportunities and the highlights, there are also the challenges. You know, I want to understand from you some of the major challenges, if any, that you've seen. What advice you would have based on how you overcame that for someone watching this interview?
I think any entrepreneur, and especially in the MSME space, if you talk to him, I think every day is a challenge. Having said that, I think as an entrepreneur, when you set out, you understand that those challenges are the ones you need to deal with to be able to succeed in this ecosystem. I think retaining and grooming good talent and ensuring that they have the right mentoring to understand that being a family managed business and having a very, very heavy focus on the customer, I think ensuring that this process gets established, in my view, is probably the biggest challenge.
I'm running out of time on this interview, Sameer, but do talk to us about any advice you may have for budding entrepreneurs who are watching, leaders of tomorrow. What would you have to say to them?
Have a passion, have a vision, persevere, don't give up, I think, and make sure you do the small things right. I think that's really in essence of what I would like to say. I think it's very clear that overnight successes are very few and far in between. I think especially being an entrepreneur, you need to be prepared to take the rough, the more rough than the smooth, but just stay the course, and I think you'll succeed.
Okay. If you can leave us with where you really see the company headed in the next 10 years, Sameer, what would you have to say?
The idea has been to establish a path towards this and create a distance between ownership and management. Towards that end, 3 years ago, we set out to get a professional team in place. We had to rationalize our manufacturing, which we have done, and the infrastructure, we've already done that. We put in place an SAP system to ensure that the processes are properly monitored. And I think going forward, we are now in hand-holding the team to ensure that, you know, we can keep taking a back step, and the team that we have is going to take up the challenge and take this company where it rightfully needs to be. So.
Sameer Khera, thanks very much for your time here on the show. That was Linkages, completely out of time on this episode. If you have any feedback for us, our contact details up on your screens in just a moment. Do let us know. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.